instrumentation. So in your lab, you would have used voltmeter, ammeter, and wattmeter. So how these instruments are actually working. So that part is again part of your syllabus. And then in addition to that, the home wiring. So in your home, you have so many electrical appliances, and then you have lightings in different rooms. Let's say the staircase, and in your home, so much wiring is involved. So how to do that and all is involved. So ultimately, so many subjects are put together so that you will get a grasp of the electrical domain. But anyway, we have tried our best according to the time that was available. So in today's class, we will discuss about single phase transformer. So it transforms something. So what does it transform? So it does not transform the frequency, nor does it transforms the power, but it current and voltage. Okay, so let's just say you are getting a 220 volt supply in your power point, and if you look at your mobile charger, so if you take a closer look at the rating of that mobile charger, maybe it is 5 volt, and then some current limitation is given. So now you have a requirement to step down that voltage, a higher voltage to a lower voltage for a particular application. In the same way, at some point of time, you may have to step up the voltage. So how do we do that? So we do that with the help of a transformer. Okay. So how does this transformer works? So first we will get into that detail. So first of all, we will discuss an ideal transformer. Let us keep aside all the losses associated with the transformer. We can discuss that later. So we will discuss the ideal transformer first of all, and then we will come to the practical transformer, and then we will also derive the EMF equation of the transformer. And in doing so, we will also address the concepts like turns ratio, and the losses, the different losses that are associated with the transformer. And then finally, we will see the definition of efficiency of the transformer. Okay, so all these things we will try to cover today. We have ultimately two more today's class and tomorrow's class. So Friday's class may not happen because you have your Viva. So let us see how much we can cover in the given time. Single phase transformer. So this single phase transformer works under the principle of electromagnetic induction. So to be more specific, it works under the principle of mutual induction. So here I have a ferromagnetic core. Okay, so in one side I have a winding, which I will call it as a primary winding. Let's say this is N1 turns, and when I connect this winding to an AC supply, and let's say a current flows through this coil. So as a result of it, a magnetic field is created around this current carrying conductor. Okay, and then if I can bring another current carrying conductor in close proximity to this current carrying conductor, so as a result of this magnetic field that is induced around this particular coil. So there will be some portion of that magnetic flux that is linked with even this coil, which is in close proximity with this coil. So now what has been done, a low reluctance path has been created with the help of this core. So the purpose of this core is actually to provide a low reluctance path for the linkage of flux between the primary and this secondary. Okay. So now this primary winding and the secondary winding is not electrically connected. If you look at this there is no connection, electrical connection between this primary winding and the secondary winding. So how it is coupled? It is actually magnetically coupled with the help of this magnetic flux that is generated. Okay. So here we are connecting this to a source, whereas here we are connecting it to the load. So the primary end is usually connected to the source, which will have a particular voltage, and that voltage is either step up or it is step down for a particular application or to supply a particular load. Okay, so that is the purpose of this transformer. And then what will happen to the frequency? What will happen to the frequency? Obviously, the frequency is not going to change. The only thing that will be changed is either the voltage level will change or the current level is change. And even there is no difference in the power. Okay, so these things you must keep in mind. And moreover, this will work only with AC and not with DC. So if at all in any application, if you want to actually block the DC, so then also your transformer can help. So there is some issue that will be actually decided by the number of turns of the primary and the number of turns of the secondary. Let's say I denote it as N1 and N2. So N1 is the number of turns of the primary winding and the N2 is the number of turns of the secondary winding. So in short, it is actually two electrical circuits which are linked by a ferromagnetic core. So these are not electrically coupled but are magnetically coupled. So this part, what it does, it converts the electrical energy into magnetic energy. So electrical field is converted to magnetic field, and then this magnetic field is again converted to electrical field. So in this secondary part of the winding. So symbolically, I can represent this transformer in this way. So I have a primary winding, and then I have a secondary winding, and this transformer core is represented by two parallel lines. So this is the symbolic representation of transformer. So in an ideal transformer, we are expecting that there is no loss happening in this core, and then there is no loss happening in this coil. So whatever flux that is produced here is also linked with the secondary, so that there is no loss. So that is our assumption, but that doesn't happen in real time, because there is always going to be the losses associated with the transformer. So there will be two losses that I will be briefly putting before you. One is the I square R loss, and then it is the magnetic loss or the core loss that will be happening. So the two things that two type of losses will be happening that I will be putting before you. Before we proceed further, let me introduce you to this concept of turns ratio by further elaborating on this ideal transformer. What do we mean by perfect coupling? Which means that there is no leakage flux and zero coil resistance. Now, due to electromagnetic induction, so of course I told you that this whole transformer actually works under the principle of electromagnetic induction. So there will be voltages induced in the two coils. So first will be the voltage that is supplied to the the primary voltage, and as a result of this, a current is produced, which actually produces a magnetic field, which actually links with the secondary coil. As a result of which, there will be a current that is flowing. Okay, and then this EMF that is induced in the primary as well as the secondary coil, E1 by E2, will be nothing but N1 by N2. Okay, or I can write E2 is equal to N2 by N1 into E1. And now I will ask you few questions which you can answer in the chat box. Let us say if N2 is greater than N1. Okay, so if N2 is greater than N1, so what will happen? So if N2 is greater than N1, obviously E2 will be greater than E1, isn't it? So what will happen if N2 is less than N1? So if you are choosing, so this, when you design the transformer, so you can adjust the number of turns accordingly. So if, let's say if N2 is less than N1, let's say N2 is 1 and N1 is 3. Okay, so if you are giving 3 volt here, so then it becomes 1/3 of 3, so that is ultimately 1 volt. So therefore, in this case, when E2 is greater than E1, this is nothing but we have actually stepped up the voltage. So in the E1, we are giving some less voltage, and we have actually stepped up that voltage to get a higher voltage at E2, that is the secondary end. And when N2 is less than N1, so what has happened? When N2 is less than N1, obviously E2 has become lesser than E1. So which have nothing but step down. So this is step up. So in this way, you will be able to obtain the desired magnitude of AC voltage from a given source voltage by appropriately selecting the value of N1 and N2. And if you want to see the same thing in terms of current, so in terms of current, I can express this turns ratio. So this N1 by N2, I will be calling it as turns ratio of the transformer. So it's a very important terminology because this transformer itself, it's all about these ratios. Okay, so the transformation of the voltage or the current, it depends on this ratio, which we call it as turns ratio, which is nothing but the number of turns in the primary divided by the number of turns in the secondary. So if I want to express it in the terms of current, the input and output current, so in this case I can write E1 by E2, or E1 of t by E2 of t is equal to I2 by I1. Okay. So which is equal to N1 by N2. So then let us go to the topic of practical transformer. So what happens in the case of a practical transformer? There will be some leakage flux involved. So that leakage flux has to be taken into account, and the losses has to be taken into account. Addition to the flux that is linking the secondary winding, let's say ZL is the load, so there will be also some flux that is actually leaking here. So that completes the circuit in this way, which I can call it as the leakage flux. So this is the leakage flux at the primary side. In the same way, you will have the leakage flux at the secondary side as well. So 5 LP and 5 LS. It's the leakage flux at the primary and secondary winding. So in the sense that a portion of the flux which is produced by the primary is linked with the primary alone and not with the secondary. Okay, so in that sense it is actually a leakage flux. And also in the previous case we have assumed that the winding resistances are zero. But whenever there is a resistance R associated with the winding, obviously there is going to be this loss, which we can call it as I square R loss in the winding. Okay. And also when, let's say, there is no load connected here, let's say if you are open circuiting this, so then obviously there is no I2 that is flowing. So because this is open circuited, now when this I2 or IS is equal to 0, we assume that this IP should also be 0. But in reality that does not happen, because even when this is open circuited, there will be some amount of current that will be flowing here, which we can call it as the no load current. And putting all these together, we can express this whole transformer in the form of an electrical circuit. So which we can call it as the equivalent circuit of the transformer. And each component in this equivalent circuit, it signifies something that actually practically happens within the transformer. So let me show you the equivalent circuit of the transformer. So whole transformer, I can express it in the form of an electrical circuit. Let's say this is the supply voltage that is applied in the primary side, and then that coil will have a particular resistance RP, and it will have a particular inductance, so whose impedance is denoted as XP. Winding, and similarly in the secondary winding as well, the coil has some inductance which I will denote as XS and some resistance RS, which will be connected to the load ZL. let us say after all these losses, effectively this is the voltage that is appearing here, and then ES is the voltage that is appearing at this end. And this portion of the circuit, which excludes all these resistances and inductance, which we can call it as the ideal transformer. And everything put together, we can call it as the practical transformer. Now, one more thing is missing here. So, just now I told you about the no load current, the no load current that will be flowing even when this current IS is equal to 0. Let's say this is IS and this is IP. So even when IS is equal to 0, when I actually open circuit this, so there will be some amount of IP that will be flowing. Okay, so where that IP will be flowing, or what is using that IP? So I am expressing that in the form of a parallel combination of this R and L. So a portion of that current or the no load current will be called as the magnetizing current IM, and this is the loss current IE. So this is responsible for the I square R loss, and this is responsible for the losses that happen in the core, let's say due to the flow of eddy current and all that. We can write the relation between VP and EP. So if you want to express this relation between VP and EP, if you can use KVL. So VP is nothing but EP plus this current IP into ZP, and this is the ZP. So ZP involves, so the magnitude of ZP will be nothing but root of RP square plus XP square. Okay, so in the same way, if you can apply KVL here, so here you have Vs to be nothing but Es minus, so this is the total voltage that is appearing here, and some of them is dropped across this Xs and Rs. So ultimately you'll be getting Es minus Is into Zs. So what is this Zs? So here I have actually neglected this component. Zs is equal to root of Rs square plus Xs square. Now, whenever this impedance is negligible, so we can write that if Zp, Zs are negligible, so then Vp by Vs will be nearly equal to Np by Ns. Number of turns in the primary, number of turns in the secondary. So we have to write what is this I naught. So this is nothing but the no load current, which has actually two components. IM is the magnetizing component, and this is the IE is the loss component. So let us proceed further and try to obtain the EMF equation of the transformer. So we know that in the transformer, so you have the primary winding and the secondary winding. And the flux that is produced in the transformer as a result of this current I that is flowing through the primary winding. So when this is sinusoidally varying, okay, so when this is sinusoidally varying, obviously this will also be varying sinusoidally. So therefore 5 is also varying sinusoidally. So let phi m be the amplitude of the flux and let phi be the frequency of this flux in hertz, and the instantaneous value of this flux at a particular time t is given by phi m, the maximum amplitude sine 2 pi ft. So this actually looks something like this. So this is phi m and this is actually minus phi m. Okay, so phi ft. So what will be my d phi of t by dt? So when I differentiate, sine becomes cos. So it is ultimately 2 pi f cos 2 pi ft. So this cos I can write in terms of minus sign. So how will I do it? So I'll introduce a minus sign here. 2 pi f phi m sine whatever you have here theta minus 90, okay, or pi by 2. So I'm expressing this cos in terms of sine. So this is the rate of change of this flux. So when I take this further, if you can recollect the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, the EMF induced per turn. So this is talking about only one turn of the coil. So how much is the EMF induced? That is nothing but E is equal to minus of d phi by dt. So we know phi of t already. We have obtained this d phi by dt as well. So this was obtained to be minus 2 pi f phi m sine 2 pi ft minus pi by 2. So it is minus of d phi of t by dt. You will be getting 2 pi f phi m sine 2 pi f minus pi by 2. So what is the physical meaning of this particular expression? So it means that the induced EMF, so it actually expresses the relation between phi m and the induced EMF, and what is lagging and what is leading. So what is actually lagging? So the EMF is actually compared to the flux. So if you look at the expression for the flux phi of t, it was how much? It was phi m sine 2 pi ft. So when you compare this and this, so you will lagging. So this is actually lagging behind this phi. It means the EMF is lagging behind the flux. Now, what is the maximum value of this induced EMF? So if you talk about this induced EMF, it is the maximum value of this induced EMF. So that you can very well get if you look at the magnitude. So this is nothing but the maximum value of the induced EMF. 2 pi f phi m. And remember, all this is for a particular tan of the coil. So now the question arises like what will be for n number of turns? Obviously, you will have to multiply it by n. So before that, you will also write this, comparing this equation and this equation. We can say that the EMF lags behind the flux by how much? By an angle of pi by 2. So this is about the maximum value. So from the maximum value, how will you get the RMS value? Root mean square value of the induced EMF. It will be nothing but 1 by root 2 times whatever you have of E max. Let's say if I can call it as E max. So this is 0.707 times 2 pi f into phi m. So in other words, if you multiply 0.707 with 2 pi, you get 4.44 f into phi m. So this is in volt and this is also in volt. So now when I analyze the primary winding as a whole, I have to take all the windings. So therefore in that case, RMS, all the turns of the windings are going to be taken into account. So therefore in that case, the RMS value of the primary induced EMF will be 4.44, whatever I have got here, F phi m into the number of turns in the primary. In the same way, the RMS value of the secondary induced EMF which I can denote it as ES, it will be again 4.44 F into phi m into number of turns in the secondary winding. So we know what is NP and what is NS. So finally, what are the losses that are actually happening in the transformer? So as I told you, there are two losses basically. One is the I square R losses. So when I had drawn the equivalent circuit, I had actually modeled that with the help of a parallel combination of R and L the losses and efficiency of transformer. So obviously a real transformer will have some resistance associated with the winding. Okay. So, sorry. So it will have some resistance R associated with the winding, which results in this I square R losses. And this happens in the winding of the transformer, and there is another loss that happens in the core of the transformer. So this happens due to the hysteresis effect, or hysteresis, when this comes into picture, obviously due to the magnetizing and demagnetizing. So you can recollect this from the hysteresis graph. So what happens that if you look at the relation between H and B. So what happens? So initially this will be the graph when H increases, so B also increases. So then when you actually decrease this H, what happens? B refuses to reach a zero. Okay, so this will be the residual magnetization that is already present. Okay, so this will obviously play a vital role, which we can call it as the hysteresis losses, which is not so much desirable. And then about the eddy current losses. So as I told you, this eddy current losses can be minimized by minimizing the surface area. So that is why in the upcoming video that I am going to show to you, you can very carefully observe how the transformer core is actually made. So transformer core is not made of a single piece. It is actually different thin laminations that are put together to form the core. The idea is to eliminate or to reduce the eddy current losses. Okay, so if you talk in terms of efficiency of the transformer, is nothing but output power by the input power, and the output power is nothing but the input power minus losses divided by the input power. So let us watch a small video. Kindly confirm by raising your hand, any of you, to confirm whether this audio is clear at your end.
Transformer is an electromagnetic static device in which input is in form of electrical energy and output is also in electrical form. Also, the input and output both are in alternating form. Primarily, transformers are used to change level of voltage and current. For example, in case of step-down transformer, the input high voltage is transformed to a low voltage, whereas the magnitude of current is increases. Of step-down transformer, the input high voltage is transformed to a low voltage, whereas the magnitude of current is increases because input and output power has to be remain same. Working of a transformer can be understood by taking a simple example of a small piece of wire carrying current when it is connected to a battery. As a result, a magnetic flux gets set up around the conductor. If another piece of wire comes in the vicinity of this flux, an electromotive force is get induced in the conductor, which we can see here, form deflection in needle of a galvanometer. But after some time, deflection becomes zero. Because both conductors are stationary means there is no relative movement between them. This is known as dynamically induced EMF. Further, we can also experience that EMF is again induced in the second conductor when we remove battery. This is because of reduction in flux density around the first conductor, and the second conductor try to oppose this change in flux as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. The magnitude of EMF induced is given by E2 is directly proportional to d phi by dt. This electromagnetic coupling between the two conductors can be improved by two methods. Number 1. By using coil on both sides instead of using single wire. This results in increase of flux. Number 2. By using a magnetic core between the coils, which gives low reluctance path to the flux and improve magnetic coupling between the coils. As you can see here, in this case, coil of left side, or we can call it primary coil, has lesser number of turns than the coil on right side, or we can call it secondary coil. And the transformer is called as step-up transformer. In this case, voltage which is induced on secondary coil V out is higher than the voltage which is applied V in on the primary coil, whereas the current get reduced as the power has to remain constant. Similarly, when primary coil has more number of turns than the number of turns in secondary coil, the transformer is called as a step-down transformer, and the voltage induced on the secondary side V out is less than the applied voltage V in on primary side. The core which is practically used in a transformer is actually not a solid core. It is made up of number of thin sheets of metal called laminations. This type of construction is used to reduce eddy current loss, which occurs inside the core when it carries changing or alternating flux. As core is used to provide a low reluctance path to the magnetic flux, but the core is subjected to circulating electric currents. These circulating currents, called eddy currents, produced heating and energy losses within the core, results in decreasing the transformer's efficiency. This circulating current is produced mainly due to EMF induced in the iron core, as it is constantly being subjected to the changing magnetic field set up by the external sinusoidal supply voltage Vn. To reduce these unwanted power losses, thin steel laminations is used to construct the transformer core. Laminations are made up of highly permeable material, that is silicon steel. These laminations are assembled together to build a solid core. The resistivity of the steel sheet itself is high, reducing the eddy current losses while making the laminations very thin. The thickness of these laminations is vary between 0.25 mm to 0.5 mm, and as steel is conductor, laminations are really insulated from each other by a very thin coating of insulating varnish or by the use of an oxide layer on the surface. The problem with the construction which is so far discussed here is that the two windings are well separated from each other and there is considerable reduction of magnetic coupling and hence the efficiency of the transformer. This disadvantage can be overcome by using constructing core like this, in which the two windings are bring close to each other, thereby improve magnetic coupling between them. Hope now you have a little bit idea about principle of working of electrical transformer and about its construction. We will discuss it in more details and other topics related to electrical.
So this is about the construction of a transformer. So we have been as brief as possible due to the lack of time. But in this particular module, I'm not going to discuss any problems. So you must understand how a transformer works because it's an integral part of our day-to-day life. And in tomorrow's class, we will discuss about DC machines, how it operates and its construction and its various classification, etc. So and then we will wind up. So hopefully tomorrow's class will be our last class. And regarding the instrumentation part, so I am not going to discuss in this course. Obviously, you will have a measurements and instrumentation course from the electronics perspective. So I think that will give you a brief idea about how these equipments actually work. But you have already used it in the lab, so it does not matter. And then related to the household wiring and the safety measures and all these are something which we have to learn through our practical experience. Okay, so as you said, not all things can be taught in the class. So whatever the foundation that is required for understanding all these things has been already laid in this course, making best use of the available time. But still, again, due to the festival in between, we had to cancel one or two classes, and then due to the PhD interview, we had to cancel some classes. And then in the month of December, there was one class myself missed out. So all these issues are there. So don't worry. So according to the given timetable, so you will have your end semester examination, and that will include all that I have that I will discuss till tomorrow. So it will be till from module 1 to module 6. Okay, so module 5 has been briefly dealt with today, and that is included, and then module 6 is also included. So mostly you have to concentrate on problems. Mostly concentrate on problems. In unit 6 and unit 5 and 6, I am not discussing any problems. So obviously look for problems from unit 1 to unit 4. Okay, so unit 5 and 6, it's purely theory because we don't have much time to discuss problems. So here you give more concentration for your end semester, mainly on the problems. I don't prepare asking you to write pages and pages of theory, description, working principle, definition like that. So I want you to be equipped enough to solve problems. So somebody has asked a question